This meeting is being recorded.
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today on Sword and Sandal Cinema, I am proud to announce the 24th anniversary of Brian's Drive-In Theater. Greetings and welcome, Brian Walker.
Thank you, Hercules. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great. 24 years. That is a phenomenal accomplishment. I think I
That's
stumbled
true.
on your site. It must have been, I was calculating the other day, it was over 20 years ago. So I must have found your site early, and I've been a fan ever since.
Well, 24 years, that's longer than most marriages. So it's some sort of accomplishment. I'm not really sure what that means, but it's been nearly a quarter of a century. It's just kind of hard for me to believe that I've been spending this much time on something that's actually fairly intangible. but why not? As I mentioned to you before, I'm about a third of the way into a site redesign. I've been cutting over the individual actor pages every day for the last 6 weeks or so. And I'll continue that until I'm completely done with the site. And the index page, or the main page of the website, is going to have a different look as well. And the index pages for the genre areas of the website are also going to have a different look. So for right now, I'm just trying to get 300 plus actor pages through the mill. I'm completely redoing the HTML. Most of the pages are getting a pretty hard edit and rewrite. There's a lot of new photos that I've added, and additional content in other areas as well. There are more streaming movies available through the website. Some pages have film trailers, television appearances, and feature-length films all right there.
Wow.
Unfortunately, not every page has that because, as you know, I rely on public domain sources, and everything isn't available. Maybe someday, but if you live long enough, right now, everything up to, what is it, about 1925, 1926, film-wise is public domain. In a couple of years, Steamboat Willie, the Disney cartoon, is going to be public domain. That's going to be interesting for the Disney company.
A lot of the superheroes are approaching that time too, and there's been a lot of speculation as to what's going to happen when Batman and Spider-Man and all of these characters that are very big at the box office all of a sudden become public domain. And with Conan the Barbarian, he's already in the public domain. And we're seeing rival comic book companies putting forth versions of Conan now based on the original stories because they can.
Well, and as you know, I mean, you love mythology. If you rely upon an open source, a public domain source, not having to pay anybody, is a great luxury. And just in your talking about Spider-Man and Batman, all of these getting ready to enter the public domain. Think about how long these characters have been popular.
Yes,
it's a step. Batman has been popular for 80 years. It's just amazing. How many other characters have lasted that long? Not very many.
no, the mythology of our popular culture. And a lot of people forget that the ancient mythologies too were entertainment. That you had bards, you had harpists, you had playwrights, you had all sorts of artists putting pictures on vases and cups, and this was the entertainment of the day. And those characters are still with us thousands of years later. So I'm sure now that these entertainments are global too, that even if our civilization collapses, there'll be equivalents of the Hulk and Superman, found throughout the globe.
Well, that gives me, that makes me feel a little bit better about current events anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's when all of these films, the ones that are profiled on my website, when all of these films were made, they were made to be exhibited for, a certain length of time, certainly less than, let's say, 6 months or something like that, and put away and forgotten about. And it's just astounding to me, as I get older and look back at, for something that did have, such a temporary, feel, temporary focus, this stuff lasts and lasts. You don't think about that when you're creating. You don't think that, this character that I'm creating is going to last, essentially like Greek mythology throughout eternity.
Right.
So it should make us a little more careful about what we create, I guess, especially if it's going to linger that long.
It very well might. Now, what inspired you to initially create Brian's Drive-In Theater? What were the thoughts that went into, this is a great idea, let me do it?
Well, in the 90s, like like everybody, the internet was coming together. I wanted to be part of it. I was really excited. And before that, I was on AOL, which was a sort of pre-internet for me, I suppose. My dad actually, back in the 70s, was working on, the old style ARPANET at work. And I can remember him talking about it, and his description of it actually turned out to be, pretty accurate. And the more I heard about it, the more I read about it, and since I've worked in education, all my adult life, I could see educational benefits to having certain subsets of information available on the internet so that anybody from anywhere in the world could access it. But as I kept accessing information, looking for, tidbits, photographs, various pieces of information about, certain actors that I was a big fan of, you just couldn't find anything. There was precious little on the internet about any of the Peplum actors. Steve Reeves more than the rest of them, and Reg Park would probably be a close second. But everybody else there was just no information out there, and that's sort of what spurred me on. In addition to the fact that the department that I was working for wanted to build its own website and didn't have anybody to do that and wasn't going to pay anybody to do it. So I was voluntold to try to figure something out. And I was really interested in it anyway, and I started looking at the source, behind the HTML pages and trying to figure out the code. That's how it all started, and I signed up for, back in the 90s, there were these several different free spaces where you could go to host your own web page. And some of these you'll probably remember, like GeoCities.
Yes, I remember GeoCities.
And I don't know what became of any of them. I suppose, the better ones got swallowed up by something bigger. And the one I joined was Tripod. And I was, Brian's Drive-In Theater was one of the first 100 websites on Tripod. I don't know if Tripod still exists. I don't know if the other 99 websites are still around, but I was one of the founding 100. So take that for what you will. And I've kept, the real challenge here is to keep your life going and still indulge yourself in the hobby and play with the website. And you're one of the reasons actually that I keep coming back to this, wanting to make it better. One of the reasons that I haven't just said, oh, screw this, I'm going to stop updating it. I update it every day. I'm in it every day, and people like you spur me on. So I really appreciate it. And Hercules, I cannot hear you.
There we
There
go.
you go.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I got you.
I'm very honored to be part of the legacy of Brian's Drive-In Theater because, again, I found it early and it was a great place. And back then, things would appear and disappear on the internet. So I've said this several times, I printed out every single page and put it in a loose leaf notebook. This way, if I went there and it wasn't there anymore, at least I had evidence of it and the benefit of it in my loose leaf notebook. So I'm glad it's still here after all of these years. I remember the logo too. The logo's been there for forever as well.
Yes, I'm a big, believe it or not, another thing that I do about every day is I'm in Adobe Photoshop all the time. I love Photoshop. I am not a natural born artist by any means, but I love tooling around in Photoshop to see what I can do to images and such. And that's actually an original creation, and it was up day one on the website. So it's original equipment, you might say. I don't know if any of the other images on the website, any of them at all, because I've replaced poor quality images with better ones over the years. So there's precious little that is day one for my website, but the logo is day one.
Yeah, I remember it's very distinct, and I'm glad that it's still there, and it's iconic now. Now it's part of the sword and sandal tradition. It's a hallowed institution.
Well, I love mid-century modern furniture, and design. The area where I live right now has a lot of mid-century stuff in it. And the areas where I've lived in the past also have a lot of, and that's what you remember, as a kid. I can remember going to my grandparents' house, and a lot of really now cool retro 60s furniture, some of which is now appearing in my house. When we cleaned my grandparents' house out in the late 90s after they passed away, some of the old 50s and 60s stuff didn't get tossed out, and I scooped every last bit of it up and shoved it in a U-Haul. I did, and brought it home. And over the years I've collected a lot. I really like the design elements in it. If you look at mid-century modern, they're all basic shapes. It's very simplistic in nature. You've got angles and you've got curves, and I wanted my logo to sort of fit into that, and that's I don't know if it does or not, but that's my interpretation of it. It looks basically what I wanted it to look like, what I envisioned.
I could imagine it on a drive-in sign.
Yeah.
You drive in, the big plastic sign that they have with light bulbs behind it. I could imagine seeing that, and I still imagine seeing it whenever I see the logo.
Well, you know what? Who knows? I as we were talking earlier, I'm getting ready to retire from my day job here in about a year. And I'm looking for something else to get into. I'm not just going to sit at home watching game shows and knitting socks or anything like that. I want to get into something, and who knows? Doing something along the line. There's a lot of old abandoned drive-ins in the Midwest, and looks like that may be where I'm heading. I'm not really sure, after retirement, but it'd be fun to buy an old drive-in and try to revive it, get it going again.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
It would be.
If not a physical drive-in, now with everything moving towards virtual reality, and even Facebook is going meta in a few years. Now the possibility of constructing a 3D reality within the metaverse, or whatever the new internet is called, that'd be very appealing. You could actually put it up there on the sign and have a 3D space where people can come in and watch movies.
Well, that certainly is the less expensive of the two options, and the one that's probably more doable of the two. And if as long as I don't get too old, as long as I don't get too set into my ways, technologically speaking, maybe I can make that happen. Or maybe they'll, maybe Adobe will make something that will dumb it down enough for me to be able to do it. It sounds like fun, and I do like playing with visual a lot. That's one of the things I love most about tinkering around with my website. Is bringing new pictures in and new images. For the site redesign, for example, I've got a sort of a bust image at the very top of the page now for every actor, and it's a GIF, so it has an invisible background, so I can put it anywhere, that I want to, and still have it, look like a bust. Trying to find pictures, the right picture to do this has been kind of tough. It's kind of a time-consuming process in there. But like I said, I love playing around with the visual, and I think the site design allows you to see more of it. One of the hallmarks of every page on the website is a background that is set up in layers in Photoshop. I strip away everything but the image of the actor. And then I'll overlay that image over maybe a textured background. Certainly something with a color that pops. I love garish Technicolor, which is why the logo is very bright, but basic colors. You've got yellow, blue, and red. I like things that pop. I like things that are really bright. I know that in terms of trying to read it, if you are sight challenged, that can be a big issue, and I'm trying to rectify that problem. I have set up the HTML so that sight readers can get through the images and we'll get additional information out of them. So I have done that much.
Oh, that is awesome. I wasn't aware that those things were part of the evolution of the site. And that is incredibly awesome.
Well, they've gotten a whole lot better. Like everything else, they've gotten a whole lot better than they used to be. And but even at that, there's some basic rules. In a former life, I worked in publishing, and there's some basic rules. One of them is a light background with dark text is much easier for most people to read. And I am now sight challenged. When I was younger, I wasn't, but I now am. So I appreciate little things like that. I've been trying to keep those background images, but I've been trying to increase the contrast so that it is a little more elder friendly, if you've got old eyes like mine.
Well, my eyes are old as well, if it's any consolation. I have to wear like reading glasses to read most of the time. Today I was surprised. I left the glasses at home and I was able to read without the glasses. So it was a happy day. And I was able to conduct my meeting at the library without holding the paper far from my face and close to my face to make out any of the letters. Oh, that is fantastic, and I like the new look. I was very concerned because I was very attached to the old retro look, and you had evolved it over time, anyway. But now that I see the new images, it's phenomenal. You kept the spirit of it very much alive, but it's a lot crisper, it's a lot clearer, it's a lot cleaner and less grainy than it was before.
Well, and that actually says more about my. You say what you will about my graphic design skills. It says more about those than it does my HTML skills. My HTML skills are, my site's been around since February 1st, 1998, and that's where my HTML skills ended, essentially. And I write all this by hand. I don't use an editor. I've tried to pull them into editors and it just never looks right. It never looks like what I want it to. So I have to go old school on it and just write the HTML by hand, which is really cumbersome and slow. But you can still do it. You can still make things work, and you can make it look modern, even if it's not. I mean, yeah, underneath it might be a Model T, but the body looks, a bit more modern,
Well, you have more HTML skills than I have, so I always admire those who are more skilled than I in any category. So I have nothing to criticize because you could do much better than I could do with that.
Actually, it's not that hard to learn. Some basic stuff, and if you do get into using an editor, you can do some great things simply and easily. But when I was updating the website, I looked at a lot of other websites that I like, the ones that I enjoy looking at. A lot of it automotive related, and Max Motor City Garage. If you looked at my site and Max Motor City Garage, you might not see a parallel there. But that's the one that I took a lot of inspiration from. And that's the one I probably got the most ideas from. And that's kind of drove the layout. I wanted to do away with, menus here and there. I wanted everything to be, grouped together, and you have the general information at the very top, you just above the scroll, and then the information about the specific actor page and the access to it, right below the actor's name and profile shot.
I believe our first guest well-wisher is here. 862 area code. I'll ask you to unmute and introduce yourself.
Hello?
Greetings. Is that Michael?
Hello? Yes, this is Michael of Bold Spirits.
Greetings, Michael.
I want to wish Brian a very happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you, Michael.
I can't begin to tell you what your work has done for my life. I've told the story multiple times to Hercules about how the films that you're featuring and you're introducing new people to as well have impacted my life, and in ways I couldn't even explain. I was just telling someone, I had a house sale here over the weekend. I was telling someone, a young bodybuilder, married gentleman, about your site, as I was giving him some of my sword and sandal films, which broke my heart. But I'm in the process of moving, and I had to part with him. And I was telling him to please check out your site, because there's a whole world of physical culture there, and myth and fantasy all rolled into one. And he said he's going to check your site. In fact, I wrote it down for him. So it was fun. It was thrilling to introduce a young person to what you've been sharing with us for so long now. These films are just so memorable, and I just can't. I'm really stuck in that time zone, as Hercules probably knows. I can't adjust to most of the new stuff today. So I love, from John Agar to Gordon Scott and everything in between. I just love what you feature on your page. So happy anniversary. You're doing a great thing. And the most exciting thing is when young people are exposed to this work. And I've always said they don't know what they're missing if they haven't seen some of these films or been exposed to some of these films, and their stars. So happy anniversary, and may have many, many, many more.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate it.
Michael is joining our Sword and Sandal cinema rotation. He has a show called Bold Spirits Holistic Concepts. And like me, he's inspired by the old Sword and Sandal movies. They pushed him in the direction of physical culture and working out. So we talk about that a lot on his show. And he also has a background like me with UFOs. So we've been talking about that. So I asked him recently if he'd like to start appearing on other shows. So he's now officially part of our Sword and Sandal cinema crew.
Well, that's wonderful.
I'm very excited about it. Thank you.
And Hercules, these movies in a microcosm represent the mores, what was going on in the era that they were made. And they really reflect culture at that time. They're, if nothing else, I do find a lot of younger people, since I work on a college campus and have forever, a lot of younger people really are interested in the past, and they're inundated with information. Well, I'm as guilty. My partner would tell you I'm as guilty of that as they are. But they're always plugged in, and what they're looking at is current, and they do wonder, well, how did we get here? What kind of entertainment was there 50 years ago, or 100 years ago, for that matter? And the real luxury of it is for them to be able to, just get on the web or social media, and you start to piece that together for themselves. I find, we've mentioned this before, but I find that fans of horror films and science fiction films are the ones seemingly most likely to go back, and research past films. Where did science fiction films come from? Things of that nature. And a lot of Gen, the millennials and Generation Z, they're more interested in a lot of this stuff than you might think. And they do like, some of their favorite movies, some of their favorite music is stuff that you and I listened to and watched when we were kids. It's amazing.
Yes, it is. We have Ron Carson, who's just joined us. Ron, are you there?
I am here, present and accounted for, cuz. Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't think I could be seen, but at least I can be heard.
That's the important thing.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Awesome. How about you?
It's been a very, very trying day for me, so to speak. First of all, I do want to acknowledge the fact that today is a day of remembrance, because March 8th was your father, my uncle / godfather's birthday today. So a happy and heavenly birthday to Costa, who is always on our minds, and his memory remains eternal and everlasting each and every day. We were blessed to have him in our lives. He was a good man, and he will always be in my heart forever and ever and ever. And I just wanted to acknowledge that throughout the start of the meeting, just to let you know.
Awesome.
Because
Thank
it
you
is Costa's birthday.
very much. Yes,
You're
it
very
is
welcome.
my late father's birthday today.
So
He
your
was
late
a good
father
man.
and
Yes.
Pisces.
He was a Pisces, absolutely. Is this the one and only Brian Walker?
It sure is. Hi, Ron.
How you doing? Finally, we get a chance to communicate. First of all, happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. I wanted very much to be a part of the salutation in you presenting a very, very awesome feature on social media, and how you shine every time you have a nice conversation with my cousin. And, we all have to kind of acknowledge each other on the interest of our sword and sandal genre, that we keep this momentum alive and we continue to do so, because I think it's important for future generations to get to experience the same type of entertainment that we were privileged to encounter ever since we were young, and that we still get joy out of this. But your platform is by all means a perfect way of continuing that tradition and the trend. And I'm very impressed with the page on Facebook whenever I chime into it, and the scenes and the biographies, and your knowledge is just so impeccable. And I just wanted to acknowledge you about that, Brian, very, very much.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words, Ron. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem, not a problem. But, Hercules and I are more like cousins. We're like brothers, because of the fact that we've grown up together, and we lived through this sword and sandal genre ever since we've been watching these classic films on Channel 9 and the $1 Million Movie, and even going to the theaters in our old neighborhoods to see these films in high fashion. And it's kind of nice that I'm associated with keeping the Peplum genre alive. As you know, I do a feature called Ron Carson's Coliseum every fourth Tuesday of the month. And we pick a Peplum movie that's, you know, pretty much either the classic genre or even one that's out of the ordinary too. And we like to review it and pretty much give our 2 cents in making sure that people know what we're showing at the cinema. And the Coliseum is like the perfect vehicle for us to do that. So I don't know if you ever tapped into the broadcast or not, but you're welcome to check in later on this month and see what it's all about.
Well, I'd love to.
And a bit of
Open invite.
part of the naming of the Ron Carson's Coliseum is because there used to be an RKO Coliseum in Washington Heights, where we saw most of these movies.
Oh,
And the
very
RKO
cool.
Coliseum was the classier movie theater. Then there were some that were not quite as classy, where we got to see more movies, but they were not as expensive in production as in the RKO Coliseum.
I think I know where he's going with this one also. Let's, for example, the old Heights Theater near our old parochial school.
Yeah, that became a place of pornography after a while, you know, right across from parochial school.
Oh, sometimes Hercules will have to talk about stuff like that. You know, I practically
The
grew
Heights
up.
used to show regular films, Brian. You know, they used to show regular movies, but because there were 3 theaters in my immediate neighborhood. You had the classic vintage RKO, which looked like a very, you know, vaudeville type theater, which was beautiful. The screen was like gigantic, and there was an orchestra pit where people were actually performing with musical instruments over there. And it was like the quintessential theater to watch a movie. And then we had a little theater down past St. Nicholas Avenue near Audubon called the Cinema Astral, which was showing, you know, second-run movies, but they were showing them with Spanish subtitles.
That's
And
right.
because that was
Blackula and all those other films were playing that theater.
yes,
And Diary
and
of the Wife, and that was the movie theater that showed all of those.
definitely. I mean, we used to always go to these movie houses in my old neighborhood every time we had the opportunity to do so. And do you remember we even went to the beautiful Lowe's 175th Street Theater before they turned it into the Reverend Ike Church?
Yes, I remember going
Which was
there.
right near the terminal. That theater is still standing, believe it or not, and it's a unique shape and form. I was so floored when I went in there to see the inside of this movie theater that it's still preserved the same exact way like we remember it when we used to go to see films there as kids. I mean, a part of our past is still there in the Heights, which is beautiful.
Yes. And Ron, I need to cut short your reminiscences because
Yes.
our next tribute sayers are here. Greetings, Nicholas and Michele. How are you?
Kalinista.
Kalinista, take care.
Okay, love you all. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye.
Ron.
It's Nicholas and Michele. Greetings. How are you?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
I'm well tonight. Actually, a little embarrassed, actually. But
Why are you embarrassed? Just getting lavished with attention?
in this life, it just never happens. You know, I'm paid to pay attention to everybody else's kids. So, well, they're not really kids; they're adults, but they act like children. So, whenever whenever I'm in the spotlight, it's just a little strange. But I really appreciate it.
Well, we're here tonight to wish you 25 years of your old school website that still has those 90s vaporwave aesthetics that I dig so much.
It sure does.
Oh my gosh. It's incredible how much information you have at your website. How long has that taken you to put that all together?
Actually, mentally, I guess it's just, you know, been there my whole life. You know, as a kid, I collected old Super 8mm movies. You know, the ones that you could buy in camera departments and camera shops. A lot of it was online, not online. God, what am I saying? A lot of it was mail order. which was the online of the 70s. And just got into it from there. Bought a lot of movie books as a kid, read a lot. I was an only child, so I had enough money for books and Super 8 movies, so that was good.
Were your folks also avid movie watchers? Is that where you got your passion from?
Actually, they were, particularly my dad, yeah, but particularly my mother. And in the days before HBO, came along, if you were lucky, you had all 4 channels, including PBS. And we did, thank goodness. We lived in the Midwest, where there weren't any barriers to getting a reception, so that was a good thing. And if you wanted any entertainment outside the pale, you had to go out and pay for it. It's so much different now, where you can just access entertainment from wherever. Back then, you really had to seek it out and go to it. And honestly, especially in the summers, we might hit like 3 different movie outings a week. A couple of those were probably the drive-in, where you got sort of a 2-for-1, sometimes even a 3-for-1. You might get a first run movie and something second run. And Hercules, you mentioned seeing Blackula.
Oh, yes.
A Grindhouse.
Yeah.
Well, we saw it at a drive-in, but because it was the first run movie. I can't remember what the second run movie was. Gosh, it was something in a similar vein. It was an action film, of some sort, but you had to go out and seek out that kind of entertainment on your own. And they both they haven't lived together for many, many years, but they act, oddly enough, and I would never tell either one of them this, but when I go visit them, I will find them watching the same stuff. It is
wow.
and they have not spoken to each other since the 80s. I mean, it's been that long. And I would never tell them that, but they watch the same television programs, the same sports, similar movies. It's eerie. It really is.
So what are your next plans? I mean, you got your website, but what other endeavors do you do or you got on the horizon?
Oh gosh, a lot of things. One of the other passions that I have is automobilia. I love hitting car museums. I like buying old pieces of automobilia, particularly in the form of 1/24 scale promotional models. They were about yay big or so, and they were sold to car dealerships, primarily in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. When your folks would go into the Ford dealership and look at a new, let's say, Galaxy or something like that, if they bought a car, the dealer might throw in one of those little plastic toys for free, and it was probably going to be a Thunderbird or a Mustang, not the boring Galaxy that your folks bought. And like all things that people, especially men in late middle age, like, collecting all of that stuff back is horribly expensive. But we do have a giant collection of stuff like that. You wouldn't believe how many built-in shelves that I've done I'm an amateur carpenter, but I'm not bad. And that's another hobby, carpentry, but that's kind of out of necessity, more than it is a great love of doing something.
Well, Brian, what is your favorite car memorabilia that you have, and what is the most elusive?
The favorite thing of mine, this is going to be an odd story. Several years ago, I happened upon a 1967 Pontiac Bonneville in an antique mall that is not too far from where I live, maybe 45, 50 minutes away. And it's an antique mall where I never find anything. And actually, I've since even stopped going there. But I found this probably a number 8, number 9 car for about $30. And I didn't think much of it at the time. I didn't look it up or anything, but I just thought, well, $30, not bad. When I got home, I found out through a friend of mine who has since passed away, who's also another big car freak, a big automobile guy. That little plastic toy was actually worth about $300.
Wow.
And he did everything in his power to get it out of my possession. And here it is. He did everything he could. He also had a collection of these plastic promo models. Now these weren't the ones in the box that you had to put together. These were already assembled, and they did roll. So you could use them, as a child's toy. But anyway, he would come to my house whenever I was throwing a party or something like that. Go down into my family room, look on the shelves where all of that stuff is, and then find it, and would just sort of run around the party the rest of the evening going like this. Unfortunately, he passed away about 2.5 years ago, very suddenly. But that's a great memory of Chuck, and we really bonded about 30 years ago or so over our mutual love of old cars and old movies. He was a huge old movie fan. He had seen every old movie twice, at least. Everything you could think of.
So combining the two passions, old exploitation, grindhouse, drive-in theaters, and old school cars, what would you say is your favorite genre film car scene?
Oh boy, that's God, well, Bullet seems it's almost too obvious. I want to say the 7-Ups. That is an amazing, and that's not a B movie. But we did see a lot of those at the drive-in though. But the car chase in the 7-Ups with Roy Scheider driving the '73 Ventura, that is incredible. And if you've ever seen the 7-Ups, I mean, it's a really intense, nail-biting scene. And when the car chase ends, I hope this isn't a spoiler, but he rams the Ventura underneath a tractor trailer and just shears the roof off of it. Actually, from what I've read, that wasn't really supposed to happen, and the stunt man just barely avoided having his head cut off. He ducked it just at the right second, and they used the take in the movie.
Oh.
I'm going to have to interrupt your questions for a second so we can get to Andrea Tutrani, but I budgeted in an extra 10-15 minutes at the end of the hour so that if anybody has any other questions or if they have something they'd like to tell Brian, we have time to do so. Greetings, Andrea. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. Good evening. Pardon the glare off my glasses, but if I take my glasses off, I can't see anything. So I'm sorry. I understand that I'm congratulating you on a 24-year anniversary of your drive-in theater, Brian. So being new to this, not being new to movies, obviously, being new to Hercules's entire masterpiece here, explain to me briefly, I know you've done this probably a million times, what exactly is it that drive-in theater is for you?
Oh gosh, it's probably the culmination of everything I've ever really been interested in. It's terrific old movies, and old movies don't have to always be great movies. I mean, some of my favorite movies are horrible. Yeah, really. I mean, if you want to look at a classic stereotypical definition of what makes a film good, most of my favorite movies don't really fit into that category. But that's not to say that B movies can't be good movies, because there are a lot of fantastic B movies. I mean, my partner and I were talking this weekend. Casablanca is really a B movie. It was made on the Warner Brothers backlot by a bunch of people, a bunch of actors who didn't want to be in that film. They were just doing it to fulfill a contractual obligation. And it's a movie that people love the world over and read way more into the production of it than actually was there. But it's the experience of seeing the movie that really matters. It's fun to know, what went on historically in the background, the making of the picture. And there are a couple of great books on the making of Casablanca. But just how these movies affect you, and it does take you back in time to maybe perhaps the first time you saw it. Certainly, then contemporary mores, things weren't always great in the past, but we tend to remember, I hope anyway, good things about our pasts as opposed to dwelling on things that were tough. And sometimes those will, I hate to say harken back to a simpler time, but in some ways, life is much simpler when you're young. When you get old, it's just horribly complicated. Well, it is. No, I work on a college campus and have for a long time. And it drives me crazy when our students, they try to rush through their undergraduate years and get that bachelor's degree as quickly as they can. I've got students who are doing it in about 3 years, and that's not uncommon. Now they bring credits in with them from high school, and that's a big help, but they're in such a rush to get through college that they don't slow down and enjoy being a young adult. I would kill to be 21 again.
Well, you know what they say, if we knew then what we know now. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would want to do it just to be able to eat an entire pizza on my own and digest it and burn it off and not gain any weight. Wouldn't that be heaven?
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you probably, which is probably a silly question, but going back to, again, old movies, you said B-rated movies, which are actually quite fun. Most of the older movies that I really enjoy rewatching nowadays is through Mystery Science Theater 3000, because you have to have those kind of movies for that kind of comic routine. I think maybe 2 weeks ago, I watched The Crawling Eye, which was a truly classic movie that I remember watching with my mother, who was also a scary movie fanatic. That's where I get, and vampires, I love that. But what's your take on MST 3000 with those old movies?
I am a huge Misty. I was a Misty, from about 1990, which would have been around the first time that I saw an episode of Mystery Science Theater 3000. And it exposed, that show exposed over the course of about 200 episodes, I think. That's 200 old movies.
Yes.
And it exposed people, to a wide audience of people, and an audience of people who are, big fans. Who they invented cult movies, essentially. There've always, well, I mean, in a sense, especially when it comes to incredibly low budget films. Evil Dead is a cult movie, but it's not really that low budget compared to some of the stuff that Mystery Science Theater would air. And they intentionally picked movies that, well, they had to pick a movie that had some semblance of a plot and was in good enough condition, visually and in terms of sound, in order to be able to, get it past the network. But they looked at all genres of films back then. They ran a lot of peplums.
Yes. Yeah. And one of my favorites is the Hercules movie. I think it's Hercules Invictus is one by MST 3000. Yeah, I know, that's why. And I've seen that one, I can't tell you how many times. I know the dialogue by all the robots. It's fabulous. It really is. It's quite enjoyable. And you said it opens up a whole new genre of sword and sandal cinema, peplum movies, for people who didn't know that before and find it more interesting.
I'm going to have to cut so that we can start wrapping up, but you will have a chance to continue with Brian. First, I would like to announce that in honor of the 24th anniversary of Brian's Drive-In Theater, I'm starting the next phase in our Strange Entertainment, which will be taking the film Hercules Against the Moon Men and doing like a weird role-playing continuous segment type of thing with it for a quarter. So I've been playing with this idea for a while. I'm going to try it. It may be successful in the wave of the future. It may flop horribly. I don't know, but that movie's been on Mystery Science Fiction Theater 3000, so I can't do worse with it in terms of whatever my experimentation is. So I dedicate this effort to Brian, though. And I would like to say, in my wrapping up, that initially I valued the drive-in theater as a cultural institution and as a shrine to Sword and Sandal cinema. And now knowing you, I value our friendship more than those things. So I'm very honored and privileged that you're in my life. I'm really overjoyed that we're doing something creative together. And I have total faith that after your retirement, you're going to do something totally awesome.
That's a lot to live up to, but I'll try. Thank you, Hercules. I really appreciate it.
And Michael is our latest addition to the Sword and Sandal Cinema family. Michael, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Brian, or any last things you'd like to say to him? Michael, are you still there? Okay, Ron, are you still there? Okay, we're going to go to Nicholas and Michele. Nicholas and Michele. Do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Brian, or is there anything you'd like to say to Brian before we wrap up for today?
Just want to wish him a continued success. Congrats. Keep at it. It's always nice to listen to your segments on Hercules' show, and just wishing you the very best.
And I just want to say thank you so much, Brian, for all the work that you've done on your website. It's an incredible resource for those of us that are independent scholars. We know we can go there and we can find information that we wouldn't find elsewhere. So thank you so much for all that you've dedicated for all of us.
Well, thank you, Michele. Thank you, Nicholas. I really appreciate it.
Well,
And I will ask a question of Michele and Nicholas too. Brian's show has moved to our Zoom YouTube route. Do you guys want to go that route as well, or do you prefer to stay on Blog Talk Radio? You don't have to answer me now. You can talk about it.
We'll think about it, because with Zoom we can bring in props.
So we might be interested in doing Zoom.
So when you do your Egyptian segments, you'll be dressed as an Egyptian, Michele? Is that what we're talking about? Cool.
I know he would very much like that. I might bring a cat for now.
No. Dress up like Vivian Leigh and Caesar and Cleopatra.
There we go.
That would be awesome. Okay, just think about it, because Brian and I discussed too, eventually going into the whole costume thing and having like skits, just like Mystery Science Fiction Theater 3000. So let that percolate. Since we already made the transition to Zoom, that's just a few short baby steps away.
All right.
That sounds great. We'll let you know.
Well, in the meantime, we'll catch y'all a little bit later. Thanks for having us on. And Brian, I hope you have a great rest of the week, and congrats again.
Yep, congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Bye. Thanks for being on. And last but not least, Andrea Tutrani. You two are you're a recent addition to the show. You originally had an idea about doing a historical segment that talks about the realities beyond the films that we're watching, because the films are highly fictionalized. I thought that was a very intriguing idea. Are you ready to go with that idea yet, or you still want to play with it a little while longer?
That's a great idea. I really do. Yeah, I think we should start on that new branch and see where it takes us. Very
okay, fantastic. So next time we have the Coliseum, we'll schedule that in.
Good.
And you can do that segment, and we'll take it from there.
Great. Looking forward to it.
Do you have any other questions you'd like to ask Brian, or anything else you'd like to say to Brian?
Well, I would just like to say congratulations again. And I will actually start. I really haven't looked into your website and other things that you offer, but I will. Right now is my busiest time of the year where I work. I work in tourism, so this spring break is it. So as soon as I get a break after spring break and tourism slows down, I will start checking out your website and see what I can get into there. It sounds very interesting. And I would love to see your car collection someday.
It is embarrassingly big.
No,
I'm serious. I'm serious. It's scary.
Yeah, I like cars also. I don't have a collection like you, but I like cars. Let's just put it to you that way. I drive a moped, but I like cars. But that would maybe one day you can do like a photo montage of your cars. That would be great.
It's like I said, it is scary. They're taking over the house. So.
Congratulations. Looking forward to it. Good evening.
Okay, good evening. Great seeing you. Thanks a lot. And I'll ask Michael if you're still here, and Ron if you're still here, if you'd like to ask any questions or make any last statements, you're more than welcome to. We'll be wrapping up. Okay. Brian, again, thank you so very much. And I wish you success in all things. I know you'll find a perfect place, and I know you'll given the opportunity and the time, they're going to come up with something totally awesome to do.
Well, thank you, Hercules. And that's a lot to live up to, but I'll do my best.
Hi, Greg.
Hey.
He's here.
I'm here.
Thanks to everybody who's joined us. If you're on Facebook, watch out soon. I'm going to put the mechanism in place today, but over the rest of the month, I'll be recruiting people. If you want to participate in a cheesy peplum adventure, I welcome you to join us in that. And until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys and amazing adventures. We'll be on YouTube within a day or two. Thanks again, and good night, everybody. Again, congratulations and happy anniversary, Brian.
Good night. And thank you, Hercules.
You're very welcome.